Hi guys, welcome back to Nico Talks Hockey. Today I want to talk about the PWHL, Professional Women's Hockey League, and I want to talk about, um, I want to theorize and create the next 6 PWHL franchises. We've already got 6, and we've got 2 confirmed other ones with Vancouver and Seattle joining, and I want to include them and also 4 other new franchises that I just theorize might be the next ones and create their names, their colors, and their logos. I thought it would just be really fun with the news of the Minnesota Frost winning the is it the Walter Cup? But winning their cup in their league. I thought that was really cool. I'm a big fan of the Minnesota Frost. My girlfriend is a huge fan of the Minnesota Frost. She loves them, big diehard fan of them, and so it was really cool to see him. I was happy with either result, whether it be the Ottawa Charge or the Frost. I didn't really want to see a repeat winner. I'm not a big fan of repeats, but if it's the Frost, I'm okay with it. But yeah, so I wanted to start off by just naming what I would, well, kind of detailing making an outline of like what would the next 6 franchises look like in regards to, well, who would get the nods, right? We saw that Vancouver and Seattle will be the 7th and 8th franchises in the PWHL. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to break it up in the sense of like East versus West, right? So like kind of like in the NHL, you've got Pacific, Central that make up the Western Conference, and the Atlantic and the Metro that makes up the Eastern Conference. So if they go with something similar in the PWHL, I could see a Western Conference being made up of Minnesota Frost, the Vancouver team, the Seattle team, right? And then 3 other teams that I've decided to make up, which is Chicago. I'm sorry, bias there, but they are a great market, right, for sports and hockey. So, you add Chicago there. I also went with Dallas. I know that Dallas isn't the biggest market, but for sports, they're good. And it looks like the PWHL isn't going for exclusively the biggest markets just by the book. They're kind of opening it up, which is really cool to see. And then I also went with Colorado in the West because they're just, when I think of hockey places, I can't not think of Colorado. So I had to include them for sure. And in the East, you've got the Toronto Scepters, you've got Ottawa Charge, you've got the Boston Fleet. So most of the East I've already actually have already in there, but then I want to, the Montreal Victoire, the New York Sirens, but I also want to include one more East team to balance it out. 6 on the West, 6 on the East. Add Detroit to the East. Detroit, how could you not? It's an original 6 team in the NHL. You got to have them in the PWHL, right? So wanted to balance that out. So I came up with these names myself, and I wanted to just, this is just for fun. You can absolutely let me know if these names are silly or they're unrealistic. But I wanted to come up with some names for each of these hypothetical teams and these cities based on just, kind of history within the city, maybe in relation to, women's sports and hockey in general, and just have some fun with it. I also wanted to go with the theme, like, the PWHL. If you notice, their names, their team names are more plural. You've got the Charge, the Fleet, the Frost, right? The Victoire. They're more plural. There's only like a handful of teams in the NHL that are plural, so it's kind of cool. There's difference there, which is pretty cool. So I went with a lot of these hypothetical names. They are plural, and I wanted to go with kind of the same vibe that evoke the feeling I get when I look at the PWHL names. So I'll go with Chicago first. So I went with the Chicago Inferno. The Inferno, I thought back to the Great Chicago Fire. I know, obviously, a horrible disaster, tragedy, but that doesn't always stop teams, right, from making names. The the certain organizations are escaping me by memory now, but there are certain teams that have names that call back to kind of not so great times, but because they're a huge part of the history of the city and all that, that they still choose to go with the name. And you already got the Chicago Fire as the soccer team, Major League Soccer team in Chicago. So why not Chicago Inferno? I think it sounds really cool. My humble opinion, right? I think their colors would be a mix of blood orange color and cream. A lot of these are like something in cream or something in gray or something in black. Basically, because I saw it's kind of how the PWHL already has a lot of its color schematics, but also because I saw Vancouver and Seattle kind of released what their colors are going to be, and it's going to be like something in cream. And so I thought, why not just go with the trend? So Chicago Inferno, fire, blaze. You go with the blood orange and cream. So yeah, the next team up, I went with the Detroit Riveters. I thought that, with the history of the Riveters, there's a lot of history there with Detroit and a lot of the people within that, that time period coming from Detroit. And I thought it would just be sick. I thought it looked sick. I thought the logo, I'm going to be very upfront with you guys here. I made the logos with AI. I apologize in advance. I know I'm just not a very big. I'm not the greatest artist in the world. And again, this is not to be taken too seriously. I'm just having fun here. I just wanted to create it because I just like doing that. I just like creating, hypothetical teams and making, what they would look like, their colors, their logos, and all that. But yeah, so the Detroit Riveters. I thought it's a sick name. I thought it'd be very fitting and appropriate. For their colors, I went with midnight blue and cream. I think that fits within just the look of it all. And I don't know if any team so far in the league has a midnight blue aesthetic to it. So why not Detroit? Next, the Dallas team. I went with the Dallas Outlaws. The Outlaws is a team name. I know it was floating around there for Utah, the NHL team. Maybe going with the Outlaws there for a sec. A lot of people want the name Outlaws for any team for a while now, and I think it'd be really sick. Excuse me, I had to sneeze there. Yeah, no, the Dallas Outlaws. I think it'd be, you see the logo here, and it's kind of like a Western vibe to it. Kind of like Red Dead Redemption a little bit. You've got like an old Westerner, but she's a skeleton. She's a ghoul. So you take a little bit away of the person of it and more of like just a aesthetic, a vibe. I think it'd be sick. I think it would evoke a little bit of a spooky, scary vibe to it that I really dig. So I decided to go with their primary colors as crimson red and cream. And so, moving on to the Colorado team. This one was a tough one to think of a name. I don't know too much about their history, but I decided to go with the idea, Colorado, high peaks, right? When you think about peaks and you think about the Avalanche, I don't want them piggybacking off the Avalanche, but when you look at Denver, you look Colorado, they've got the mountains, and why not do something with the mountains? But you make it a little bit more creative, and you go with the Colorado Apex. I think Apex is such a great name. It's not only something to think about when it comes to peaks and valleys and all that, not valleys, but peaks, and like high tops, the top of the mountain, right? If you're the apex, you're the best. You're the cream of the crop. You're the top of the mountain. When they win if they ever win the cup, it'll be like they've reached the apex of their franchise. And also, a cool thing like the Apex Predators, they're like, they're hunting the other teams. I think it's awesome, personally speaking. I think it'd be sick if they went with the Apex as their name, if they have a Colorado franchise. But yeah, so their colors, I went with golden yellow and gray. So we see with the other teams that are already in the PWHL, Toronto Scepters, or Ottawa Charge, Boston Fleet, especially the Minnesota Frost. They're not always the same colors. In fact, they're not. They're not the same colors as their NHL counterparts. They went with different colors. Boston. No, sorry, Boston. Minnesota is like the purplish color, whereas the Wild are green. You don't have to be the same color. So I decided to switch it up for a lot of these, if not all of them. Like Colorado Avalanche are more of like a maroon and a bluish color. But the Apex are golden yellow and gray, because why not? They're gold. Gold standard. Moving on to our last two teams. These are the ones that have already been said. They've been announced that they're going to be the next two teams in the PWHL. But when they do finish this, not finish, but just continue in this endeavor to get more teams and to extrapolate their league, the Vancouver team, I have them as the Vancouver Breakers. They announced that there was going to be Pacific Blue and Cream as their primary colors. And so I thought about that first, and I'm like, okay, well, Pacific Blue makes me think of the ocean. Maybe they go with an ocean theme. So what better than like breaking the waves, right? Breaking the waves of the ocean. Breakers. It kind of is the same vibe as like a lot of the other teams, like the Charge or the Fleet. The Breakers. It just sounds so aesthetically cool to me, and it's like the same vibe. And also, you've got a little thing there, like double entendre of like the glass ceiling breakers. The PWHL, they're some spectacular women who are just breaking the glass ceiling and just showing everyone that everyone can play, which is just really cool. But yes, Pacific Blue and Cream didn't come up with those colors because they were already given. And yeah, that's the Vancouver team. The last team is Seattle. I have a feeling that if this becomes a team, I'll be rooting for them greatly. I already really like the Seattle Kraken. Obviously, if Chicago becomes a team, number one team automatically. Sorry, Vancouver. Sorry, Seattle. Sorry, Minnesota. But it would have to be the Chicago team. But Seattle, they announced their primary colors will be emerald green and cream. So I went off that and decided to come up with the Seattle Evergreens. Not too creative, not maybe my best work, but I decided to go with that because I thought it'd be super cool. I remember when the Kraken were announced that they were going to be a team, but the Kraken name hadn't been announced yet. And it was highly thought of, like, well, what are they going to be? I remember still a lot of the names, right? They were like the Sockeyes because of the fish there. Are they going to be the Kraken? The Kraken, one of them, or some type of sea monster. The Totems, I remember, was a name, but one of the names was the Evergreen. And I think that the Evergreens still works. I don't think it's non-inventive. I think it actually is really cool. And the logo I created here was, it incorporated the trees and that green that I love. So I think it would be very cool. But yeah, those are the 6 PWHL franchises I decided to just create and hypothesize about what the next installment will be with this league, this ever-blossoming league. And I wish them all the best, and I can't wait to see where it goes. But yeah, that's all I have for today for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next video.